Welcome back to Route to Resilience, the podcast where we explore what it truly means to rise, rebuild, and thrive from the inside out. I'm your host, Anupa, and in today's episode, it's one that I know will resonate with so many of you. We're talking about burnout, resilience, and the power of reinvention, especially during one of the most misunderstood stages of a woman's life, menopause. My guest today is Sahir Ahmed Evans, a powerhouse in every sense of the word. She's the founder of SAE Empower Coaching, a menopause coach, public speaker, and Pilates teacher who went from hospital beds and heart conditions to British Vogue. Her story is raw, real, and incredibly inspiring. If you've ever felt like you're running on empty, unseen, or unsure of how to reclaim your power, this conversation is definitely for you. So Sahir, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. You are amazing. I've been watching your story and your journey, and I think you're incredible. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
No, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this chat.
So let's talk about your life and your journey. You describe your life 15 years ago as depleted, burnt out, and disconnected. What was going on for you at the time?
So much. I was the mother of 4 young children. I was running a business with my husband. He had chronic pain conditions of his own, which was obviously impacting us. I was having debilitating migraines that left me shut away in a dark room, vomiting into a bucket for several days every single month. I had chronic pain. I was having heavy, painful periods, which were severe endometriosis, but I did not know that at the time. I had severe anxiety, like low mood. I feel like I was barely surviving. I couldn't even look after myself well, let alone look after my 4 children. And it's just one of those things where you just get through every day somehow, but you dread getting up the next day. And that's what I was.
You mentioned that you tried to get a diagnosis for your condition, but what was the support that you were getting? When did you realize that this is something that I have to explore myself and I have to save myself?
You know, getting the support is very, very challenging, and I was struggling. I would say for several years I just pushed through somehow, and I don't even know how I can say that several years passed, but they did. And I think it was around 10 years ago now when I had this episode. The pain was so severe, I collapsed onto the floor in my home. My son had to pick me up and put me on the sofa. I couldn't move. I was screaming in pain, and he was only a teenager at the time. I was rushed to the hospital, the accident and emergency, and I was told quite categorically that my blood levels had fallen so low that I was at risk of a cardiac arrest at any moment. I couldn't be left alone, and I had to stay there and have several blood transfusions that night, and that was the first point of moving forward. And I remember laying in that hospital bed that night, feeling utterly devastated and a complete failure. It was a rock bottom moment for me, probably the most rock bottom moment I've ever faced. And something switched in me. In that moment, I made a decision. And that decision was, I can never fall this low again. I cannot feel like this again. I don't want to be here again. And I made a decision that I would turn that pain into purpose and move forward and do everything I could possibly do, invest in my health as much as I could so that I did not ever feel like that again.
What was your actual diagnosis?
So they said that basically I had lost so much blood through the years with heavy periods, and I'd just been a pusher and pushed through, and I was left with such a low level of hemoglobin that, I could die at any moment. My hemoglobin was non-existent at that point. And they couldn't understand. They were like, how are you even walking around and living? Like, how are you doing it? And I said, well, I don't know. We've got no choice, really. I've got 4 kids. That's my answer. I don't know. And that was the limit actually of the diagnosis at that point. There wasn't it wasn't, oh, you have this and we're going to do this. It was like, it was just basically, let's deal with the lack of blood. Let's give you the blood, and then, maybe you'll have some appointments in the future. And this just kind of continued. So there was never really an answer. It was always just back and forth, and not knowing fully what was wrong. I had suspicions, and I was constantly back and forth over the last 10, 15 years. And it's only really in the last few weeks that I have a full and final diagnosis.
So I think your story is, I know that you said that you felt like a failure and that you couldn't let yourself get low. And I think it's really great that you had that realization, but you waited until you had hit rock bottom
Yeah.
to have that realization that, right, this, I have to do something about this. I have to turn my pain into purpose.
Yeah.
I have to make changes for myself. But there's so many women out there that are probably the same as you. I mean, how many of us just push through
Yeah.
and, think, I've got 4 children. I have to be the strong one for my family. So it's a very common thing for us to try and push through.
Yeah.
But what did investing in yourself actually look like in those early days when you had that moment of realization that this needs to be a turning point?
It looked very simple, to be honest, because I realized how much I was neglecting myself. So it looked like eating, eating properly through the day. It looked like trying to get a walk in, then later on adding in Pilates into my regime, and just starting to bit by bit think, what can I do? How can I sleep better? What am I eating? I need to exercise every day. I need to have time out. It was really simple. I think
Mm.
we overcomplicate it, and we think that there's these, that what are the things that we should be doing, the 5 top tips and all that kind of thing. But actually, it was just very, very simple for me, because I wasn't even eating properly through the day at the time. I thought I could just keep going on fresh air.
Yeah, it's so it's such a simple thing because I always say that if you don't fill up your own cup, then how can you be there for others? But we tend to give to others more than ourselves, thinking that that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, it's not. It's not the right thing to do. We have to be there for ourselves first before we can be there for others. So it's really great that you've had that realization. But now, because of your story and because of everything that you've been through and the realization that you've had, you are now supporting others through the same kind of journey that you've had. So your brand, it centers on the belief that menopause is not a breakdown, but it's a rebirth. And I absolutely love that. I think that's such an amazing way to put it, because there's so many people that are probably going through this change in life. So what was it that inspired this reframe for you?
For me, I was actually, my first experience of menopause was the perimenopause symptoms, and I'd been in wellness for some time by that point, and I was understanding it, and then I took it further with the research, the education, taking certifications, and I became to understand that our mindset is very powerful, and if we go through life in a negative way for anything, but if we're talking about perimenopause and menopause, if you look at it through a negative lens continuously, that's going to impact your experience really drastically. And I think that's really underestimated, is that how we frame things has an impact. So from the very beginning, I tried not to look at it from a negative lens. And we're surrounded by this negativity when it comes to menopause and perimenopause. The narrative in society that it's this, life is over, it's this thing to endure, and it's so hard and it's so horrible. And I couldn't be there, because obviously then my story continued, and I was placed in medical menopause a couple of years ago. And I had a little, very short amount of time where I panicked, and thought, oh my goodness, what have I done? How am I going to suffer? This is going to be awful. I had people messaging me. They thought they were doing the best thing, I'm sure, but they were putting the fear of God into me about what this was going to do to my life. And then I thought, I can't do this. Like, if I'm in this now, I'm in medical menopause, and I have to find a way to make it work. And I switched very quickly into, this is going to be good. I'm going to make this work. And it did. And I'm not saying I have some unusual power, but I really do think that mindset shift is very powerful. So I try to just be positive about every day, the symptoms, what it does, how it impacts your life, and what we can do to make a change. Because I think what we don't understand is we have a huge amount of power within us, in our mindset, and in the efforts that we make in our life. You know, the things that we do, the daily practices, there's so much in our power that we can help ourselves through this time. And then obviously then, you know, you can go even deeper, and there's the HRT and seeking help with your medical professionals if you're still struggling. But there is a lot we can do, and it has to be reframed into a more positive time, and that is what I'm here to do.
Yeah, because I think the perception that I get is that most women see it as a dread, like, oh my God, this is something that I'm gonna have to go through, and it's going to be awful. And in actual fact, what you're trying to say is that we can make choices and decisions to make it easier for ourselves. We don't have to endure pain or suffering. We can actually make it easier for ourselves, and that is possible.
Yeah, that is possible. And then I think it can go even further in, it's not only something that we can, stop enduring. I feel like it's a hugely powerful transition in our life that we have time to reassess, we have time to reset, and to think, where have I got to this point? What happens now moving forward? What can I change? What can I reevaluate? What can I redefine in myself to step into this new era and really own it and enjoy it, and, you know, shed all those things that possibly I needed to leave behind and I just kept holding on to. And it is like a re-identity. You can really I've found the person, the woman I was always meant to be through this season. And it's been deeply liberating to step into those shoes.
Tell me more about that, the liberation that you felt, and the new identity that you found through this difficult time. I'm interested in that. So tell me more about that.
I obviously I've done a lot of work on myself, with the investing in my health and wellness. I've invested in myself in my work, professionally, personally. I've done speaker training, mindset coaching, and all that together has just allowed me to step into feeling the most confident I ever have. I was never a very confident person before these last, I think, 10 and the 5 years, and definitely the last 2 years have been like the icing on the cake for me. I feel confident in myself. I've been able to own who I am, and in the power of I am an older woman going through perimenopause and menopause. I am a mother, a grandmother, South Asian brown woman who wears hijab, but I use all that to my advantage because I feel it's an advantage. You know, I have experiences and wisdom that I can help other women with. I have been able to shed all the things that hold you back. You know, we listen to all the voices and all the judgment, and everybody has an opinion on what you're doing and what we're doing. And that doesn't mean anything to me anymore. One time it meant so much to me. I felt like I lived for worrying about what other people might say or judge me. And now it doesn't even factor into things. So it's that, in that way, I feel like it's really liberating. And I do feel like it's very much that has to do with the drop in the hormones and the change in the hormones. because those hormones that we have that enable us to be the nurturers and the caretakers, when they start to lower and drop, it changes who we are. And then we step into this zone where, yes, we are prioritizing ourselves more. Yes, we are thinking about ourselves more. And people may deem that as selfish. And I used to have a bit of an issue with that. And I'd say, oh, no, it's not selfish, it's self-care. Now I've changed my view, actually, to saying, yeah, it is selfish. And it's fine to be selfish at this point in your life. You've spent your whole life caring for others, prioritizing others. Most women have got to this point and they're feeling burnt out, exhausted. They've sacrificed everything. I hear the word suffocating so much. They're suffocating in their own lives. And then you get to this point and you see a bigger picture. And you think, what can I do now? What do I do with this newfound liberation and freedom? And there is so much we can do.
Yeah, it sounds like you came to a point of acceptance that this is happening in my life and I have to do something about it, and that something is putting myself first. So I think that's really great. And you mentioned your background. Why do you think that so many women, particularly in ethnic communities, women of your background, continue to struggle in silence?
I think self-sacrifice is taught, encouraged, pushed, almost. And if you're not self-sacrificing yourself as a wife, as a daughter, as a mother, as a daughter-in-law, as a part of the community, you're potentially frowned upon. And if you are selfish and you're doing things for yourself, and you're doing even something as so simple as going to the gym every day, that is seen as this huge luxury. Like, how are you even doing that? And that's not a luxury, in my opinion. It's just as important as eating or sleeping. And I think women get stuck there because that is all they know. It's all they've seen and it's all they've been taught. And I do understand it to some level, because our mothers and grandmothers, a lot of them were immigrants. They came over to this country and they had to struggle and sacrifice. So it was the only thing they knew, and it was the only way they could manage as immigrants. It's the only way they could raise their families, because they were doing everything. They were probably working, they were raising the family, and they were working ridiculous hours of the week to manage and establish themselves in this country. But now the next generations, we don't have that struggle as much. You know, we're settled. We are children of immigrants, but we're still trying to follow that example. We're still trying to be that and look up to that. And I think we need to take a step back and say they did the struggle. And thank God they did, because it's established us here. And I'm hugely grateful to my mother, my grandmother, my ancestors for doing that. But now we can do things differently for our daughters and our granddaughters. And we have to do things differently because there's no need to continue.
Do you think that there is a shift in the societal narrative around this phase of life? And have you seen a difference in the narrative shift?
There is a shift, definitely, towards the more positive and towards trying to find this time as a time where you can rediscover and redefine yourself. I think there's still a lot of work to be done, especially in the ethnic communities, in the Black community. We are behind the white community. And there's still a little bit of a narrative that menopause is just for white women. Only white women experience menopause. And, you know, it's not something we just get on with it. Like, why are we talking about this? I had a lady say to me, I was at an event and she asked me what I did. And it was a wedding. But she asked me, what do you do? And so I explained. And she said, everybody's talking about menopause now. And, you know, this menopause, you know, she said, but we just got on with it. Like, we didn't even talk about it. We didn't even know what the word was. And I responded, I said, yes, Auntie, but did you struggle though? Was it a hard time for you? And she said, yes, it was. I said, that's why we're talking about it, because it's okay to talk about the struggle and the hardships, because potentially you're going to help other people, you're going to help other women, future generations, and we don't need to continue the struggle. I feel like there's a little bit of a narrative in our community that we need to live and die by the struggle because it's the only thing we know.
Yeah.
But why can't we change that? It's possible to change that, but only we can change that for ourselves.
Yeah. One thing that just came across my mind while you were speaking was, my background, we speak Punjabi. I don't even think there's a word for menopause in Punjabi.
I don't think there is. We speak Punjabi. I'm Muslim Pakistani, but we speak Punjabi. My native tongue is, and I don't think there is. I've discussed this with my mum, and she's like, "No, I don't know what we say. We don't say a word. Like that's bizarre."
Yeah, that just shows how much it's brushed
Yeah,
under the carpet because we're expected to just deal with it.
yeah, yeah,
So I think that, you're a great representative not only for ethnic communities, but just in general, you're a great representative for this kind of conversation. So tell me about your role as a public speaker and educator. How did that transition happen for you?
that transition was quite organic, because I was in health and wellness. I actually started my business when I said that I turned my pain into purpose. That is when I started my business and then my brand, because it was, I'm not going to do this myself anymore, and I don't want anyone else to do it. And that's where I started. And I started in fitness, in Pilates. That progressed to wellness. It progressed to coaching and menopause and endometriosis coaching. It's been very organic. And a couple of years ago, I think it was after lockdown, I started creating content online on Instagram and then following on TikTok and that kind of thing. And speaking very much around these topics, speaking around health, wellness, investing in yourself, seeing things from a positive angle. What can we do? And that's the growth that then took me to think, okay, I'm speaking, I'm doing the things, I need to put more into it. I feel like this could go bigger. How can I take this message even wider? So I did some work in public speaking to just really just so I could feel more confident in myself in doing that. So it's just been a very organic journey. And that's where it's taken me, and things like this. I'm here on this podcast today and I get asked to speak at events and on Instagram lives and online in public. It's been really organic and a really beautiful process, to be honest, because it's been very intertwined with my personal journey, and that's what I've loved about it. So my personal growth has filtered into my professional work. So I really think that I can talk and share and advise from a place of experience, and that's what I really enjoy doing. I actually enjoy doing it, so it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, I think that sometimes when you have purpose and you set yourself an intention and it's aligned, it magical things happen and miracles can happen. And I see that in your journey. If anybody hasn't seen Sahir online and the work that she does, it's actually incredible to see just how much you're doing in that sphere. I've seen you in Hello Magazine. I've seen that you've done work with British Vogue, and it's incredible. I think it's really great. And like I said, I think it's nice to have somebody from your background to represent.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever happened, and it just feels right. So it's really great that you can do that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's been important to me, because there are women in the medical professionals, doctors, surgeons who will talk about this kind of thing. But I think coming from lived experience, not from a medical professional background. Yes, I'm a coach. Yes, I have certifications, but it's my experience that matters more. That I can talk from experience, and then also the experience of the women I work with, or who talk to me, or who approach me. That is, I think the gold is there, because you can really find the understanding.
Yeah, definitely relatable. Absolutely. So you have something called the SAE Empower method.
Yeah.
Can you work us through that?
Yeah, sure. So that is my long time developed framework that I use with my coaching clients, whether that's one-to-one or group coaching, and I'm developing a recorded program as well. And it's the framework that I have used multiple times because obviously through this journey, I have ended up sort of going backwards a little bit. I'm an endometriosis sufferer, so that has a huge impact. And even now I'm going through a transition. I'll talk about that in a minute. But that is the framework that I've used. And it's an all-encompassing framework that works on body, mind, and soul. So it's not just a 12-week exercise program or a mindset program or, working on your nutrition. It's everything that helped me on my journey that I have found organically has helped clients and women I talk to. So I worked really hard to make it into a framework that I feel works really, really well. And you can implement those changes and adjustments into your lifestyle without it feeling too disturbing and too much, because we don't want overwhelm. Overwhelm's already there, and I don't have that. So it's not something that women look at and think, well, I can't do that. It's actually very accessible.
Yeah, so is my understanding correct to think that it's a mix of mindset, movement, and nourishment to support healing?
Yeah, definitely. To support that growth and especially with menopause, but even with endometriosis, trying to use it. So for me, I always use just a really simple phrase is to get you from surviving to thriving. That is what SAE Empower Method is going to do. It's what it's done for me and many others, and I've used it multiple times when I've had situations in my life that have set me back. And I'll just go back to the beginning and okay, let's not overwhelm. Let's reset a little bit, and that's what we do.
Fantastic. It sounds like an amazing method and program. So if you could give some tiny steps to women going through menopause, what can they do? What are those tiny steps that they can make today to start feeling more empowered?
Right. Firstly, I would say that you need to become body literate. You need to understand what is going on in you. Not anybody else, not the noise you hear of what everybody else's symptoms are. Actually, what is it with you? How do you feel? And I always like to use those three, which is body, mind, and soul. So you're thinking about your physical symptoms, how are your emotions impacted, and how are you feeling mentally. And a great way to do this, I feel like, is a daily journal. So for many, many years now, I've kept a health journal. And it's really simple. It's not long-winded. You don't have to be there for half an hour writing away. Just a couple of words jotted down for those three different things, your emotions, your body, and your mental state. And you start to become very in tune with what's going on in your body, in your mind, and it helps you see a bigger picture. That is going to help you if you need to go to your medical professionals, if you need to seek help, and just for you to realize that, oh, I felt terrible on so-and-so day, and I do now. And what is there that's linking that? Did I have a terrible sleep? Was I hugely stressed? You can put the things together yourself. So that is number one, is to feel and understand yourself, and do that through your health journal. And then I think take it one step at a time. So don't think of it as in I have to address everything. I need to look at my exercise, my nutrition, my sleep, my stress management. I need to be doing this, and it's going to keep me up busy all day long. Just take one simple thing. Can you say to yourself, if you're a non-exerciser, can you say, I'm going to walk for 10, 15 minutes every day. And I'm going to do that for a week or so. And then I will look at the next thing. Potentially I'll do 10 minutes of Pilates or 10 minutes of strength training. So trying to just break it down and let yourself adjust to that change one thing at a time. Because I think there is so much going on in a perimenopausal woman already that you can't just go and overload yourself. Because when you do is just overwhelm and you don't do anything, you just procrastinate and you just stay stuck where you are. So one thing at a time, and just keep building it and see it as building blocks, that you're just adding on another building block after a week or two. And you will start to see the changes. You will start to feel better. And once you feel a little bit more better, once you start to feel a little bit energized, then you can do more. Maybe you can move at a faster pace and add more things in. But I think we just have to start quite slowly.
Yeah, so just to sort of sum that up, the first thing is to connect with yourself, listen to your own body. I always have this phrase where I say, become your own scientist. And it is really, really important. You have to figure out what drains you, what energizes you. Because if you don't understand yourself, then you can't help yourself. Yeah. So the first thing is to listen. And then the second thing you're saying is to make small but consistent changes. Because if you're trying to do too much, then you're setting yourself up for failure. I think that's really, really great advice. And yeah, I think that would be, I think it sounds really simple, but it's something that a lot of us don't know how to do.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I've noticed, that I think it's got a lot to do with this digital age where everything's become really overcomplicated, and there's so much advice out there that it's overwhelming. And we think that in order to feel better, there must be this huge complex equation that we have to do, like some kind of really long algebra equation that we would have to do to feel better. Because that is what we're seeing, and we're hearing all these different messages, but actually it's just really simple. We just need to do the simple things consistently every day, and you will see the needle move. Because Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I guess it's not something that happens overnight as well. I think you have to have patience with yourself.
Yeah, you have to have patience, because it's not an overnight journey, because it's a lifelong journey. So I don't want anyone to see it as like my program's a 12-week program. Don't think that just for 12 weeks you do that and then you go back to everything and you're still going to be fine. They're the tools and strategies that you have to put into place, and that is how you live for the rest of your life. And they're not tools and strategies that are suffocating and too difficult to implement. They are daily practices that are life-changing, but they're very, very easy to do.
Yeah, no, it's a really great advice, and I think it sounds like the best advice to give somebody of a woman who's going through this life change.
Yeah.
Not to overwhelm them. Well, so tell me, what does resilience look like for you today? Because I know that you're on this journey and you've used this experience as your power, which is amazing. But there must be times where, you're having a bad day yourself, and we all go through ups and downs. It's not always going to be, an amazing day. So how do you continue to be resilient and be there for yourself whilst also being there for others?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Resilience comes from doing hard things and actively seeking out hard things, so that when life throws the hard things at you, you have built that resilience. And so it sounds strange to say, so it's do the hard things so you can do the hard things. And for me, that is in terms of, I like to do physically hard things. So that's where the physical challenges come in. So I work out a lot, that's my background. And I like to do calisthenics now, and handstands and pull-ups and things like that. And it sounds like, to somebody who's not experienced in it, they think, well, how is that going to help you deal with life's challenges? I don't get it. Because working on yourself and going through that mental struggle and the physical struggle to do those hard physical things makes you resilient. And then life throws things at you, or you get blown over by another tidal wave. And you do get blown over. You just, we're just human. It's much easier to get back up and face it. and face those challenges. So, for example, I said I would come back to this in my story. My ongoing journey of the last 15 or so years with endometriosis, not knowing it was endometriosis, then finally having a diagnosis 2 years ago. I had a diagnosis and I was placed into medical menopause, and I've been really, really well on medical menopause. I feel like it's the reason I have managed to progress so fast in these last 2 years out of the 15. And then I was knocked off my feet again about 2 months ago or so in excruciating pain, even worse than that time when my son picked me up. My husband had to call an ambulance. It was just awful. And it turns out, long story, but I've had an MRI and the endometriosis is much worse than we realized 2 years ago. It's impacting my bowel, so my colon, my rectum, umbilical endometriosis, my ovaries, my fallopian tubes, and I've been told I need a full hysterectomy. So that is literally going to be in the next couple of months, I should imagine. To have that news when I've reached such a high point, like I feel like I'm at my peak now, and I thought, oh wow, that means I'm like going back to ground zero. It's going to be no exercise, it's going to be recovery. And to be honest, I feel like I've really managed that news very well. And I think it's because of the resilience that I've built up. To even think, I'm a bit gutted, I won't be able to handstand and do pull-ups, but I'm going to start again and I will get there. It will take me a little bit of time. Obviously, I'll have to get over the surgery and build all the way back up again to that peak. But I have the system. I know I can do it because I've done it many times and I've helped others. So that is what that resilience gives you. I haven't been utterly floored and devastated by this news. I won't say I've taken it in my stride, but I've been able to step back and say, right, what do we do now? How do we do this? What wheels do we set in motion to move forward? And that comes from building that resilience.
Yeah, you're such an inspiration because I guess that is the kind of news that would certainly floor a lot of people. But for me, it sounds a little bit like you're coming to the end of your journey, like all of the pain that you've been suffering. Yeah. It sounds like you've finally come to this is a solution. So this could be a brand new beginning for you.
Yeah, that's how I'm seeing it, as another new beginning. I have the chance to rebuild again, and I'm going into it with the mindset that it's going to be the ultimate rebuild because I won't have that ongoing pain. I'm sure there will be pain, it's surgery, there'll be scar tissue, but my mindset is it's going to be, the ultimate rebuild.
Amazing. I wish you all the best with it. It sounds like it's going to be a really difficult time, but like you said, you've kind of built that muscle of resilience, which means that it should be a lot easier for you to go through. I mean, it won't be easy, of course not, but your mindset and your strength will help you to get through it a lot easier than what it would have been maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So I wish you all the best with that. So what kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind with your work? Because I think the thing that's most interesting about you is that you've mentioned this before in this podcast, that you describe yourself as a proud Pakistani grandmother who rocks pull-ups and handstands. So that identity and building that identity, I mean, I'm sure that's going to kind of make sure that you leave some kind of legacy behind with your work.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I like to think so, because that is the ultimate, right? Is to make a change for the future, and it's to make some noise in the right way. That's what I want to do. I want to be part of a bigger change. And actually, for me, it stems back to something that my father used to say. He used to say, health is wealth. And it was always a deeply important statement to me, but it's only been in the last few years that the impact of that statement, that's really landed with me. And that is the legacy I also want to leave behind. I feel like that's the legacy he gave me. And that's the legacy I want to leave behind, that you are your most powerful person. You invest in yourself and you will see the benefits. You will reap the benefits. And that it is the most lucrative investment you will make. You know, we can think about houses, money, cars, all that, but actually your health is your most lucrative investment, because without it, you have nothing. You can be a millionaire. If you don't have health, what do you actually have? And that is, for me, is the ultimate legacy, so that women especially take that forward and feel empowered to invest in their own health, and don't see it as selfish, and don't think that everybody has to always come first and everything has to always come first, and then you invest in yourself, and by then there's nothing left. That if you start with yourself, invest in yourself, you will actually see how that filters down, and you can help everybody else around you, whether that's your family, your community, your society, or if you have a bigger message and you want to leave a legacy, you know, globally, which is what I want to do. God willing, you know, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I wish you all the best. Like I said, I've been watching your journey, and I think what you do is incredible, and you're such an inspiration. So thank you so much for sharing your story and wisdom with us. I think you're a really great example of what is possible when we stop waiting for permission and we start choosing ourselves. And yeah, you must be really proud, and your family must be very, very proud of you as well. So before we end the podcast, please do share with our listeners where they can find you if they need any kind of support or are on their own journeys and they need some kind of inspiration.
Yes, so I am SAE Empower Coaching on all platforms. My website, it's just that one name, so it's not confusing. You can find me on Instagram, you can DM me, you can send me an email. The lines are open. You know, I love to talk to people, to women, to help and advise and do what I can. So please get in touch.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sahir. I will also be sharing Sahir's contact details in the show notes, so you can find her easily. Thank you so much, Sahir.
No, thank you, Anupa. Honestly, it's been a wonderful chat, and thank you for having me on.
If you're listening and resonating with any part of Sahir's story, I want you to remember this. You are not broken, you are becoming. You are not invisible, you are invincible. You are not past it, you are a powerhouse. So menopause is not the end, it's just the beginning. A reset, a time to rise, to thrive. So I will leave you with this. What would your life look like if you started investing in yourself, mind, body and soul today? Now, if this episode moved you, please share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review and follow me on Instagram. Until next time, remember, resilience is your superpower.